serving you a dose of wisdom and humor with a dash of radiance. Welcome to Biscuits and Sunshine with your host, Callie and Landra.
Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Callie and we're excited to have you with us today.
And I'm Landra. It makes me hella happy to have you with us here again. We're coming to you from Distant Sport Audio Studios in Athens, Greece. Welcome to episode XC6, Pame. Let's go.
So if you're just joining our listener family, you might be wondering why two women with seemingly American accents are recording from Greece. This isn't totally a travel podcast, so what gives? Well, Landra and I both live in Athens. We moved independently of each other, not together, to Greece in 2021, and we met in January of 2022.
I'm from California, and Callie is from Alabama, which you might be able to hear a little bit in our accents.
Wow, whatever do you mean, darling?
Exactly. It's been so rad exploring different cultural phrases and sayings and experiences based on the areas in which we grew up. I grew up in Northern California, and often you'll hear me add a hella as an adjective to emphasize a lot, very, or really.
And there really is no dearth of amazing colloquialisms in the South. Knee-high to a grasshopper. My papa used to say friskier than a young dirt dauber.
You might have to translate some of these.
Yeah, a dirt dauber is like a wasp.
Ah, okay.
So friskier than a young dirt dauber. That dog won't hunt, as in that's not a good idea, it's not going to fly. Too big for your britches.
Ooh, I could translate this one. My grandma used to say this, and she was from Nebraska. It's like you're getting like a little bit, what's the word? Like, I want to say cocky.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a little, like talking back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually when she used it.
Don't get too big for your britches now. And then I had a softball coach who, when he got frustrated about how someone was playing, he'd say, "Ugh, she couldn't catch a cold." Never said about me, clearly. But it always used to make me laugh when he'd say it because he was actually true. It would always be the most appropriately timed thing to say. So, still, you might be wondering, what do California and Alabama have to do with Biscuits and Sunshine? And, clearly, everything. Landra actually came up with this title as a joke, and the moment she said it, I knew it was perfect. In my opinion, the South is often associated with Southern cooking, of which biscuits are a cornerstone. And I found that Southern biscuits are not common in other countries. Biscuits tend to be either cookies or more of a scone-like pastry. So a biscuit, to me, is a symbol of Southern culture. And Southern culture tends to be centered on hospitality. We're friendly people, we want you to feel welcome. For me, you welcome people with food. So I couldn't think of a better way to encapsulate my Southern heritage than with a biscuit. Not to mention the fact that I want to open a cafe here in Athens to serve biscuits and other delicious foods, but that's still in the works.
Ah, love that. Love that. And sunshine represents California, West Coast vibes. It's bright, it's warm, it's happy. And yet I remember doubting the word sunshine when I brought it up to Calliope because I was like, by my nature, I am positive, but I'm like, is it too overly sweet? And is it too centered around like, oh my God, everything's great when things aren't always great, you know? But when upon further conversation, she reminded me that sunshine's also very grounding and nourishing and needed for things to grow. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, it's Biscuits and Sunshine.
California love.
Shake it, baby.
Okay. Jukebox in the house.
And I have to say that we both embody parts of where we are homegrown. So here we are, Biscuits and Sunshine. And speaking of the concept of home, I remember when I was home from college and I said to my mom, where I grew up home, I said to my mom, I was like, oh yeah, when I'm home, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, this is your home, not your college home.
My mom said the exact same. She still says the exact same thing.
Oh, our moms. Well, they'll always have the home with them. But then I realized that kind of got me like, oh, right. When I say home, I use it more expansive. To me, home is like, it's where I'm at that time. And so even if you're traveling with me, and I said, when we go home, sometimes I'm talking about the hotel we're staying
Absolutely.
at. Yeah, but it really proves that we can have many definitions of home really for us. And so we thought, what a great way to kind of talk about that today, because we have talked about this and share it with you.
They say home is where the heart is. And for me, apparently, my heart is all over the world. Back in Alabama, here in Athens. It's more about how a place and its people touch my heart. I recently went to Morocco, and I'd say very quickly I came to think of it as a type of home as well. I can't wait to go back. For me, it's interesting to think how a foreign place can feel so like home.
Yeah. When I think of Morocco, I have not yet been, but you got
Oh,
me really excited to go. I just think of the ornate architecture and the colors, and like maybe even like the senses of like the smell and also the food, like through the senses. I think a spice market. But I don't know if that's true for what you experienced or if there's anything else that really grabbed or captivated you. It felt like home.
it's interesting because before I went, I read nothing about the country because I wanted to be an empty cup ready to be filled. And so I wanted the experience to be kind of taken in with open eyes. I met such incredible people who went out of their way to help me experience their culture and their community. It brought such comfort to me. It made me realize, and this is something I think travel does, it made me realize how cultures are so similar. As a representative of a culture, I want you to have a great time. I want you to feel safe. I want you to have an experience that you take home and tell other people about. What I loved about Morocco, I love Aegean blue. There is something about a Greek summer and the color of the sea that
The Aegean Sea.
brings you down. My whole body starts to just relax. Morocco was red and it was earthy and it was warm. And I'm drawn to those types of colors. I look at the blankets that I've bought around the world. They're warm blankets, both in textile, but also in color. Deep greens, deep browns. And to me, Morocco felt very grounding. I felt peaceful and really comforted there. So now, as I'm reading all of these things, having come back, it's not the same experience that some people have. And it's like we have visited two different places. And I think it has a lot to do with this mindset of home can be anywhere because it's about the people and the places and how they touch your heart.
Yeah, that resonates so much. For me, that was my time spent living in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 6 months.
What
And
about it made you feel like home?
yeah, I mean, some of what you touched upon and some other stuff, I mean, gosh, I guess on a broader level, it was the culture, the Latin culture. It really lives in my heart and it's very familiar because of my Portuguese heritage and community I grew up in was around a lot of like loud talking and warmth and, through touch and connection through food and just the expressiveness, that kind of like passion that really lives, kind of permeates throughout like just what you see and what you hear. And so, yeah, that was like number one. And then it's always the people.
Hmm.
I mean, people are so warm and welcoming and I really felt like I got to be woven into the part of community. So I was at a language school for 6 months. So, of course, you're paying tuition there, but, people could have just said, oh, great, come, whatever. But teachers that just would want to share so much about their culture with me that were like, oh, come meet me. Let's go out. Let me, invite you to this or that. That sense of belonging really, really radiated there. And yeah, also through, embodiment stuff I was doing. I was early in taking yoga classes and tango. My tango teacher, Pablo, he is still very amazing. I've continued to go back years over year. And having that sense of routine made me feel like I was really a part, of that feeling home, really grounding. And then I'd be remiss without mentioning my host family. They created such a nurturing environment for me. I mean, I was so cared for. They cooked for me. I had the most cozy, comfortable home. They, jokingly, lovingly call me their adoptive daughter. And I very much, feel that way still to this day. We connect. So yeah, that's a lot of what made me feel at home there.
It's so interesting how people can go different places and have different experiences. And I think one of the things that we share is that when we travel and when we go places, we're not tourists. We're travelers. We're seekers. We're adventurers. We go places to have an experience. And we go, for the most part, very open to whatever the experience has to show us. I hear you talk about your time in Argentina, and so much of it really resonates with me deep in my soul, because I feel that places around the world will impact you at different points in your life. You
Yeah.
can go back and have different experiences in the same places. And I feel like as long as you're open to that, really any place can be home.
That's so true. They say, or I don't even know if it's a quote, but I don't know how to say it, but essentially it is around like richness in life is about collecting experiences. And I feel like that is so true. And, when I was younger and didn't have the most money and, but I wanted to do see the most world, I remember that like, I'll take that crazy, cheap flight because it has many different layovers. Or not because of it, because it was cheap. Then you'd have all these crazy layovers. And then I'm like, I'll do 2 days in Rome. And then I'll fly here for 2 days and, and in Lisbon. And I just was like, oh my gosh, did I really get to know a place? I went there, but I didn't really know it. And of course, the older you get, the more you start, making income. And again, it's about experiences. That taught me of like, oh, actually, I'd like to stay somewhere for a while. I think it was Argentina for sure. That's like the quality of being able to sink in and what you can really know about a place. And that just at time in my life really just became more important to me versus like running around and consuming. And I say this all in the sense of like, this is consuming, wanting to like see places. This is before social media existed, before a smartphone existed.
Yeah.
So there was still a sense of like, I want to go and grasp and see it all. But even now I find myself like, whoa, just like sink in a little bit more. You don't need to run everywhere for like 2 days.
I also think our experience living abroad has likely changed how we approach going places. Because for me, I don't feel the pressure to make use of this one-time experience. I have allowed myself to say, I will do these things when I go, and if I don't see them all, it's okay. I'll either come back, or I'll be okay not seeing this spot or that monument or this museum. And I think that changes the experience. Yesterday, I read this piece from Anthony Bourdain. He's talking about experiencing Paris. And he's like, I hope you spend all day getting lost. I hope you eat bread every moment of the day. I hope you find someone to have sex with. I hope that you experience Paris in a way that is authentic and real. Versus standing in line at the Louvre, versus standing in line for the catacombs, versus standing and doing all of the check mark box things. Yes, great, do them. But there's so much more to a city and a culture than just the touristy things.
Literally, I have goosebumps. It's like, when something's like true and or at least for me, when you get the full body sensation.
It's true.
Those are my favorite days. Actually, going in again, it happens here. I create these moments in Greece and in Athens, and the same in Argentina. Just wandering and having a camera, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's just a notebook, and just absorbing, and then not having a plan of where the day takes me. Because I thought, I was like, I'll wander, but like, what's the worst that can happen? I can grab a taxi and get my way back. But I'm pretty good with my sense of directions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's you have like the one or two things that you really want to do.
Yeah.
For me, I went to Madrid recently, again, my second time there. And I'm not okay, don't kill me. Don't come for me, people. I'm not a huge museum fan. I get overwhelmed if there's a lot of art. I went to the Louvre and I wanted to see the Aphrodite of Milos, and I wanted to see Winged Victory.
Not the Mona Lisa.
I didn't even care about the Mona Lisa because I knew that the expectation...
Controversy.
I know. Please don't come for me. The expectation is that she's larger than life, and it's such a small painting, and you wait in line to get there.
I did.
When I went to Paris with my friend, she'd been several times. She said, we're going to go into the room where the Mona Lisa is. And I was like, oh, I really don't care. I've seen it online. I don't care. She said, no, we're going to go in. We went in a crazy long line. I said, I don't want to be here. She said, just shut up and turn around. You turn around, and on the wall opposite Mona Lisa is a floor-to-ceiling painting that is so overwhelming in its size that it impacts you in a way that you don't expect. I can't even remember the painting. It's very famous. I can't remember, but I remember feeling so small against this painting.
Wow.
Expectation, reality. I'm not a museum fan. When I went to Madrid, the one thing I wanted to do this time was to see Picasso's Guernica. It was really the one thing on my list I
I have
wanted to
seen
do.
that. Pretty, yeah, amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I stood there. I was with a friend of mine. He went through the whole exhibit. I just stood there. I just wanted to see it. I stood piece by piece by piece. And because it was the only thing on my list, I felt obligated to give it my attention versus saying, okay, I have so much to do. I can spend 5 minutes here and 5 minutes here and 5 minutes here. It's such a great way to experience culture in picking a couple things and then saying, the rest of my time, we'll see where it takes me.
Yeah.
But it's a luxury for us because we live on the continent where there's so much happening and there's so many places to see. I know likely I'll go back to Paris just because it's close. I know I'll go back to Morocco because it's a luxury. I know. I get it.
Calliope finding home all over the world. No, but thinking back, to growing up in Alabama and tying it back, can you think of their places that remind you of where you grew up?
100%. One would think that Alabama and Greece are worlds apart, but they do indeed have similarities, especially when I first visited the island where my grandfather's from. Unlike many of the more famous islands, Skopelos is full of pine trees and lush green forests. Also, lots of humidity, which we have in Alabama all the time. I could see how my papu and my propapu, even I get stumbled with the Greek, my great-grandfather, how they immigrated and said, oh, this looks like home. This feels familiar to us. This is where we'll start. This is where we put down roots. It blew me away the first time I went.
Yeah, that was so special that you invited me last year to go visit the island of Skopelos. And what blew me away, my impression was like, am I in Lake Tahoe? I mean, literally, like you said, like the green, lush trees. You don't see that anywhere else in Greece, at least that I had not seen. And then these big rocks and boulders, and then the color of the water, like this emerald green color. And literally, there's Emerald Bay in Lake Tahoe that I have been to and swam in. A lot colder there, but very similar. And I also think of, when you leave Athens and you drive down the coast to what they call the Athenian Riviera, it reminds me so much of driving down the Pacific Coast Highway. It's just incredible. There's parts I get flashes of feeling like I'm in Big Sur. And I'd stayed a little bit of time in one of the cities along the way called Voligmeni. And I was there by myself, and I was walking down, and I was surprised to see people surfing. They weren't big, crazy waves, but just seeing the surfers in this one little area and then the people gathering and watching the surfers, I'm like, this feels like Santa Cruz.
Crazy.
Like West Cliff, like the beach area in Santa Cruz. And some people that I met, that we were chatting it up, and I said I'm from California, and they're like, oh, California, yeah. And I was like, do you guys know this is like very similar looking and feeling to California? And they were just so impressed.
Except with way fewer sharks, like none.
Way less. Are there even sharks?
No, they're not. That's what the Greeks say. That's what we're going to say.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any sharks.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are palm trees. So if you go down there, anybody that's visiting, you will see, if you've been to Santa Cruz, California, you're going to be like, or even Santa Monica, you're like, oh yeah, this feels like it's a little tiny slice of it. One funny little thing I thought was really cute too, I don't know how they got here, but there are these green parrots on the loose that frequent the National Garden and kind of around the parks here in Athens, and they are so loud. And they're living in San Francisco, we had the parrots at Telegraph Hill. So the first time I encountered them and heard their little chatty ways, I was like, oh, it's like a little feeling of home. Very surprising.
To me, Alabama doesn't have big cities. And so living in Athens specifically is such a different experience. I would say, though, culturally, Greeks and Southerners do share a lot of similarities. Again, warm, hospitable nature. In both places, the first inclination is to help you. growing up, I didn't always feel like I belonged, but I did notice that my two cultures, Greek and American South specifically, they use food for everything. Celebrations, memorials, hellos, goodbyes, births, deaths, just to say hi, food is ever present. And I feel, to me, there's a comfort in cultures that use food in that way. And so it is in some ways true what you said earlier, finding home all over the world. If you feed me and you're excited to do it, I'm probably going to feel at home.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. What's one thing that you love about home?
In air quotes,
In air quotes.
hands down, family and friends. They make this life experience worth it. And I think as I get older and as technology advances, I'm better able to carry these relationships with me more effectively. Like a turtle a little bit, I feel like I carry my home on my back, not necessarily materialistically. Moving countries has really made me see how much home and comfort are found in people, not things. Except I am very keenly aware that my grandparents' dining room table, which my mom got for me after they both passed, that table is still in storage in the US. And it's one of these things, one of these last ties I have in terms of living in the US permanently that I haven't really come to face yet. But I really want that table. It's such a happy memory for me. I have such great memories of sitting around it, big celebrations, even sad times, but we're all together around this table. And it was such a treat for me to finally buy a home that had a dining room. I could put it, and I remember the memories my family and I made. My parents would come and stay with me. They brought my nieces and nephews. We're making crafts around the table. We're having breakfast. We're having dinner. It's just this table. It's funny how there are just some things that mean family, that feel like home. And to me, that table's one thing that I always think about.
Absolutely. And my goodness, I imagine that table, the energy that it holds because of all those beautiful, precious moments spent around the table. I mean, you just gave me a flashback to Argentina. Some of my favorite time with Susie and Hugo in their home was around the dining room table, the evenings, the long conversations. I think I probably cried when I went back with my husband, Alex, and seeing him get to know them and having him participate in conversations around that same table. Ah, there might be something about tables in general as gathering spots as home.
I
Yeah,
feel like there's some sort of cultural, like, ethnographic study that needs to be done.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Also, again, that made me think, see, if you feed us, we're gonna feel comfortable. Feed us not only with food, but feed our hearts as well,
Yeah, any heart of a party always comes back to the kitchen,
right?
right? Any sort of like around food.
So
Yeah.
true, so true. What about
No.
you, though? When I say home, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think as I've grown and evolved through my experiences, I've come to think of finding home as a connection really to what it feels like to be centered in my own body. Because, the physical things, they do mean a lot and people as well. But, learning, it's been a journey to learn to be at home in my own body and know that there's a sense of safeness and security and connection. And then I feel it like on a deeper level when I'm in nature. It just feels so comforting. And it's funny as I say that because I remember my last trip back to California. And as I have another one coming up, I'm very much in one of the top things on my list behind people is I need to be in the redwoods.
Mhm.
I mean, there are trees and I do find nature here, but the redwoods don't exist here. And I
It
grew up in them.
it's like trees on a different level.
Yeah. So that's one thing I gotta like check that home box when I go back.
Did you always feel at home in your body?
No, that has been an absolute journey. Yeah.
Do
I
you
think it was always externally thinking home is always back to the grasping and the, oh, having certain things around me that felt comforting or familiar. And I would say the other time I feel at home is, I mean, you've said it so many times, but it's around when I'm with people who I know love me and make me feel cared for. So clearly, like with you, my friend.
Hmm.
And it's true to say for us, home is where love resides and memories are created.
We want to thank Distant Sport Audio for the audio technical expertise. And thanks to all y'all for the love and support you've given to us over these first few episodes. We are so grateful.
This week, we encourage you to recognize moments where you feel at home and find ways to carry that feeling with you into the world.
If you love what we're serving up, take a second to subscribe and rate this podcast on this platform. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram. You can find us at Biscuits and Sunshine, all spelled out. And we'd be so honored if you'd share this podcast with a friend. This is Biscuits and Sunshine with Callie and Landra.